Hello, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to do this presentation. We will be talking about transforming your manufacturing business with Cetec ERP. My name is Michael Matushak with KerberRose CPAs. I am our managing shareholder and CEO. We work with a lot of manufacturing clients that are constantly talking about frustrations they have with their ERP solution. There's always good parts and bad parts. However, we have a client who's with us today, Gemini Plastics, that actually loves their ERP system, and which is pretty unusual. And when I heard that, it piqued my interest because that might be the first time I've ever had a client say that they loved their ERP software. So they had approached me and asked if we could do a webinar talking about Cetec ERP. And Jordan with Cetec has been nice enough to join us as well and talk through and demo what their software looks like, just so that everybody can get a feel for what options there are out there in the market. And with that, I will turn it over to Joel from Gemini Plastics and GP Tech to talk a little bit about what they have going on.
Good. Thank you, Michael. As he said, my name is Joe Beausoleil. I'm the owner and president of Gemini Plastics. Gemini Plastics, give you a little bit of background, was founded in 1974. My parents bought the business in like 85, and I had purchased it from them in 2001. We're still a family business. I'm the chief executive officer. My wife handles the accounting. Alex Beausoleil, who heads our tech area, is our son. Like family businesses or small and medium-sized businesses, it's pretty typical to have silos of information. And that is the way that we had run our business up until about 6 years ago. We had information in different areas. So we had spreadsheets, we used Microsoft Dynamics, which worked okay for our distribution part of our business, but not for manufacturing. We had job routers, which is pretty typical to have clear sheets or clear envelopes with information in them, with drawings and job-specific information. We had a lot of paper. We needed to grow our business. We needed to be able to scale our business. We had a great group of employees, as a lot of small businesses do, but we didn't have a tool that allowed us to plan properly to grow. So when we got big projects, or even if we just had a number of projects and we're busy, the stack of information or the stack of orders would continue to get deeper, but the plan didn't change. And we didn't have a system that allowed us to scale that plan and grow our business. And I don't think that we fully realized what was possible until the ISO standards changed. So there was an original standard that we were involved in, was the 2008, so ISO 9001 2008. At the 2015 standard, they had made enough changes that documentation was going to be handled differently, and we took that opportunity to integrate that into our system. So our original ISO system had a lot of binders. It was a lot of paper heavy. We set out the conference room table before an ISO audit, prepare weeks for it, and then lay out binders on a table. And the auditor came in and would kind of raise his eyebrows and know he was going to be here for 2 to 3 days to get through all of these. We knew that didn't work for us. And with the 2015 standard, we knew we could integrate. That meant, though, that we needed a plan, and we needed likely an ERP system that would encompass all of our process. So we went looking for it, and Alex, being the tech person at our company, came across Cetec ERP. And we thought that it would be a good fit for us, and it was. 6 years later, we can say that it's worked out very well for us. So I think before we get into our process, I'd like to introduce Jordan. Jordan Jolly is the head of Cetec, and he can tell you a little bit about the process.
So I'm the director of implementation at Cetec. I think next week will be year number 13. So it's been a fun ride. Cetec, we focus on manufacturing. So it's a full-blown ERP system. It covers the entire breadth of a company. from accounting to sales, purchasing, inventory, operations, scheduling, production floor, manufacturing execution, quality management, the whole gamut. But specifically, when we talk about business systems, it's for manufacturing. So it goes the functionality in the system is very well tooled for manufacturing, and specifically many different manufacturing verticals, so different industries and different sort of modes. The system is very flexible, and it can apply to many different sort of unpredictable ways in which smaller mid-sized manufacturing companies are set up and how they run. It is modernized, so it is web-based and very low cost. So our vision is to provide very capable manufacturing software that can run the entire business end to end, that specifically addresses pain points and functionality that are addressing manufacturing companies in particular, but to do so in a way that is not going to break the budget, and that is not going to be too complex for a smaller company to understand and use. So when Gemini Plastics approached us and we engaged, it was very clear that this was the type of company that should be using Cetec, right? From our standpoint, it was like they were a perfect fit. Bit of a smaller company, great team and culture, needed, despite being a smaller mid-sized manufacturing company, they still needed the same kind of tools that would enable them to business and run more efficiently. And to do that well, it needs to be fully integrated. It needs to, like I said, run every department in the company. It needs to go deep into manufacturing, into some of the specific pain points that they have. And it needs to do so in a way that, again, doesn't break the budget. This is not a Fortune 500 SAP, high-end ERP. They needed a practical tool that could do all of these things, build their business and run more efficiently. And they needed to be easy to use. So modernized, web-based, user-friendly. So I'm going to just give you guys a little window into a demo environment here, just so that everybody can see the tool. You can see it is 100% web-based. I am sharing the screen of a Chrome web browser. I have no extra third-party connectors or VPNs or anything like that. I opened a tab on my web browser. You type in your company name, .cetecerp.com. By the way, if you'd like to, you can go to a free trial and do that on the fly. We give you the entire system, all modules, 30 days free. Very obviously, transparency is a core value for us. So we want you to see the whole system. So this is the homepage. You can see all of the navigation menus. It's very much like a website, like a web app, right? You can page through those. You can look at the reports and the widgets on the web, the homepage. You can see CRM aspects of the sales funnel and backlog by customer and on-time shipments and margin, and the list goes on in terms of what type of visibility the system can bring to your company. We'll look at scheduling. We'll look at configuration and management reporting. We'll look at your inventory. Show me all of my inventory and their respective bin locations and lot codes. I mean, you can dive into any one of these areas and find out quite a bit. Yeah, I think probably we'll return to Joe and Alex now, and they can share sort of their success story and how Cetec made an impact, and even talk more about the specific features that they've utilized and so on. So I'll pass the baton here.
Thanks, Jordan.
Yeah, you bet.
Once we were in our new system, I ended up wanting to tell everyone about it, just because it was so impactful for us that I started talking to vendors and customers about it. And then once in a while, I'd get a gift card from Jordan. And I was like, oh, that's nice. And once in a while, I'd send him an email and say, hey, thanks. How'd that happen? And he said, well, somebody you talked to reached out to us. And so after being in it for, it's 6 years as of last June, right? Yeah. And we started talking then about maybe being a partner. And that was how we founded GP Tech. It was like, we have a practical knowledge of how the software works. We've been in it for years. We've proven right from selecting an ERP system from the available marketplace to implementation to actual practical knowledge of it. And when we talk to customers and vendors about it, we could talk to it from a standpoint of a user and not just someone who's selling an ERP system. This allowed us an opportunity to have a vantage point that few people have. So without any more information than that, I think probably the best way to see this is to actually see it maybe within a job shop manufacturing setting. And so we are a job shop, machine shop exclusively for plastics. So I'll turn it over to Alex and he can walk through kind of our product realization process and how we use Cetec in our business. Go ahead, Alex.
Cool. Thanks, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you said, we're going to do a tour of Gemini, which will also kind of end up being a tour of Cetec. And we'll just look at like a high level view of some different departments and modules and how we use Cetec on a daily basis at Gemini. So this is Gemini. We're going to go in the front door here and we're going to start by looking at kind of our workstations. And we're going to talk about sales, estimating, and work all the way through to production, shipping, and invoicing. So one thing you'll notice right away is that there's not a lot of paper in our office, not a lot of filing cabinets. We used to have filing cabinets, but we've got Joe's workstation here. And this is what everybody's workstations basically look like, a dual screen setup. Nice, clean desk without a bunch of paper. So he's looking at a sales opportunity. And it's really the first place where you're putting in data into the system, right? So he's going to assign a sales opportunity to our salesperson, who's then going to use a remote device and a Wi-Fi hotspot to interact with the system remotely. That's one of the beauties of a remotely accessible system. And we like to take advantage of that where we can. So now we're going to go ahead and take this sales opportunity and convert it to a quote with a single click. So we're going to connect the sales department right to estimating. And then we're going to use the workflows within estimating to connect the different people in the department. So Sherry here is doing some estimating at a local coffee shop, again, using the remote accessibility. And she is going to go ahead and use the functionalities in Cetec for bill of materials to build the BOM for this order. You can put your raw materials here, and you can also use Cetec to make a labor plan. And this labor plan and the bill of materials will be used later on in production and purchasing. So all the data that you're doing on the front end here is not wasted. And no process is kind of an island. It's all connected from front to back. So we're going to copy a labor plan from another part into this part. We can set up a few sign-offs, which will be used later in production to kind of control production and make sure certain tasks get done that need to get done for this part to be compliant for our customer. And then Cetec can also generate the documents that you need for the product realization process. So this is a quote PDF, and we can use the email function, which is tied to our email server, to go ahead and send this to the customer using the CRM built into Cetec and the customer record to pull in a contact and send over that document without having to open up our email in another tab, which is awesome. So this is Maddie. She's also working remotely. And where was she in that again? Do you remember where she?
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, that's right. And she is using a laptop on the beach apparently to work. So she is going to go ahead and do our order acknowledgement process. And it's, again, all in one system. She's using a document, much like the quote we just looked at. And she's also going to use the email functionality to go ahead and send that to the appropriate contact. So now that our order has been committed and we're ready to get to work, we're going to start out with some planning. So we're going to just look at our production planning process a little bit. So I pulled up my queue and I'm going to go ahead and look at the work instructions that were set up during estimating. Make sure that I feel like everything that is required is getting checked off there. And then I'm going to give it to purchasing. So that's my wife, Cassidy. And she works part-time for Gemini in purchasing. And before Cetec, purchasing was more of a full-time role, but with the automated features like MRP, we were able to really cut down on the amount of time needed, and she's able to do it remotely on a part-time schedule. So she's using an automated process, pulling the BOM information basically that we set up earlier to drive the demand to create purchase orders. And then we also use a very simple workflow process, which is also similar to the quoting process we looked at, to move it to me. And I go ahead and review the P quote, which is like a preliminary purchase order. And when I'm happy with it, I can approve it and we can order some product. So now we're kind of fast forwarding to the product hitting our dock. So we're going to use the receiving screen to receive parts against the purchase order we created. Got some incoming inspection instructions. And we can make a receipt right from our purchase order, basically. And again, connecting your shipping and receiving department to purchasing. And then we're also going to go ahead and move this product to a bin. So warehousing also included, built right in. We're going to make it red cart, kind of assuming this is expedited product that we need right away. We have these labels on all of our racks to organize inventory. WR14, B7, we have labels like that all throughout our warehouse. So when production people need product, they know where to go to get it. So now that we've done our purchasing, we got product in, we're going to go ahead and take some material over to the shop and get working on some parts. So at this point, we've taken a sales opportunity, turned it into a quote, taken a quote, turned it into a sales order, used the sales order to make a work order, used all the BOM information from those prior processes to do purchasing. We've used the purchasing to do a receipt. And now we are finished with the product and we're bringing it over to another queue. So this queue, we're assuming that this product needs some COC documentation, some sort of conformance documentation, which is very common in manufacturing. And we set up that sign off during estimating. So our requirement we built during estimating has now carried over to the inspection department or the compliance department without any problem. And we've made sure that that requirement was met. Super critical in our industry, and these kind of things are super easy to miss. So we're gonna, now that we've completed that sign off, it's gonna allow us to move the product to shipping. And we'll bring the parts over to shipping. So shipping has their own screen, much like receiving, where they can look at a few different things. We can see the address we need to ship to. We can see the required ship method, the ship via. We can see any permanent shipping instructions from that customer record, make sure we meet all of their requirements. We can make some labels, barcoded labels. We can input tracking information, which will then transfer on the invoice so that the customer gets immediate visibility of their tracking information. And we can create the invoice. And this is just a quick look at the details serial screen, which is sort of a record of all kinds of different things that you've kind of accumulated throughout the process. Your cost for material, labor overhead, and then also your raw material traceability to the PO you bought it on, the bin you pulled it out of, and so on. So, and that's just a taste of the traceability really that you get in Cetec. So yeah, that's kind of just a big tour of the system. I know it was fast, but you know, ERP is it's a big topic. There's a lot of things to look at, and I really wanted to just highlight how we use it and just the fact that everything is connected. So yeah, I think we turn it over now back to Jordan for pricing. You want to talk about that for a bit? So Jordan, whenever you're ready, over to you.
Thank you, Alex. And we can talk about pricing for sure. So this is one of the hallmarks we believe in Cetec. Very foundationally, we built this model to be an amenable pricing model for small and mid-sized manufacturing companies. So this is a very important topic to us. So go to our website right now. By the way, you can go to the GP Tech website. All the pricing is very transparent. It is $50 per user per month. So it's a SaaS model, a subscription. And like I said, you can find that pricing on our website and easily see that it is very transparent. That is for it's a named user model. So if you just have a normal basic user using the system for accounting or sales or purchasing or inventory, what have you, that's the $50 per month fee. We have a special rate for workers on the floor who are just taking a work order and scanning time to it, following the work instruction and moving it to the next stage. That is a half rate user. We call it production only user. That's $25 per user per month. And that's it. So there are no upfront costs. There are no required, you have to sign a contract and it's a, $500,000 install fee or what have you. There are no requirements there. The only requirement is an internet connection and a web browser, which you can run either on your laptop, desktop, phone, tablet, what have you. So it's very easy to sign up and move forward. The only other cost that should be considered is the idea of implementation. This is not a required cost. Indeed, we have some companies who self-implement. but typically there's some degree of training, consulting, an expert that can help you implement the system, convert data from your legacy system, and implement smoothly. It's a very important process. That's going to be different for any given company. That could range from, a small, $10,000 consulting project to a massive, manufacturing company's been using a legacy system for 35 years, and they're converting that much data, and they're training their employees who have been doing the same thing in the same way for 30 years. That's a project, right? And so that could be a $100,000 or a $200,000 project. So what we'll do, and we often work with partners like GP Tech to do this, is we will work with you to understand the unique needs of your project to make sure this is a success, and then you'll have an estimate of, well, how much training would that take, and how much consulting would that take, and how much data conversion time would that take, and so on. And that's going to be true with whatever ERP that you go with. The moment you need expert assistance, that's the type of engagement that will happen. And that's just a services agreement. So yeah, I mean, there are, we believe we are probably the most aggressively, I would encourage everybody here to go to some software directories like Select Hub and look for the manufacturing category. Go to top 10 ERP. You'll find our brand and our pricing is right on the homepage, and you'll very quickly get an understanding that Cetec is both one of the more capable and robust and highest rated systems. So very top tier level of functionality in terms of breadth and depth of the system, but it's almost shockingly lower priced, because we have attempted to use this modernized technology to bring a powerful system down to the level where it can be used in a user-friendly, easy, accessible, and low-priced way for a smaller mid-sized company. We would encourage, obviously, any manufacturing company that is looking to gain efficiency. There's all kinds of statistics you could run about what happens if I'm a $5 million company and I gain just 5% of efficiency, and what does that do to my bottom line? The best practices are all there. There's a reason why this is the right way to do things, and the right way to do manufacturing and run your business properly, and gain efficiency. So that's sort of all I have to say about pricing and our model, and I guess I'll turn it back to Alex now.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Once we got into Cetec, I think I'd mentioned this already, but we had started telling customers and vendors about this, and in doing so, we saw an opportunity for us to be able to assist small to medium businesses, those people who have, whether they have 5 employees or they have hundreds of employees. We knew that our vendors could be better vendors. Our customers could make improvements to scale their businesses the way that we were now able to. And we started talking to Jordan then about being able to do this software as a service and sell this in a unique position from someone who's actually done it and put it into practice. And that's how GP Tech was founded. Alex has a tech background, and made sense when he found this software. We implemented the software. We're using the software. Let's tell people about this software. And that was how GP Tech was founded. Alex had mentioned in the walkthrough that no process is an island. And I'll say that all of our process was islands. We had islands for every single one of our process, whether it was inspection or if it was the ISO 9001. If it was even accounting, and our distribution part of our business had an island in Microsoft Dynamics. We had an island in, we had it in our quality system. We use Access, we use Excel, we had paper. There were so many of these islands, and to have them connected in the same way that our people were naturally connected allowed us to be able to say, yes, this works, and yes, we can have other people use this, and we can speak as an authority on it. a couple other points that I wanted to make about your presentation. You had said how you had asked me where Maddie was, and just today she asked, in September she wants to go to Iceland. Is that okay? She's still going to work remotely. She's not taking vacation.
She's not using PTO.
No, she's not using PTO. And that really is a benefit, to be able to retain employees, because they're able to live that sort of a lifestyle and still be able to do customer service. And she's been with us for a couple of years, and I can say that it works, and works well. A little point too about on-site work. As far as management is concerned, either Alex and I are here all the time. I handle sales, and Alex handles production and a tech end of our business. Though obviously if you're touching product, you need to be here, but purchasing is off-site and is part-time. Accounting is full-time, but is off-site. Our estimator is off-site. Maddie in customer service, when she is locally and not traveling the world, she's here 2 days a week. So it's a nice mix. And we had this before it was kind of work from home happened, and it's worked out very well for us. I think you had mentioned too about the BOM items. I know on that one part that you were walking through in the process there, most of our BOM items have a single. It'll be material. However, if you have a manufacturing business that has 6 items on a BOM, or you have 400 items on a BOM, it doesn't make any difference. You can still, the system works whether it's a single line item BOM or a multiple line item BOM.
Simple parts or highly complex assemblies, or anything in between.
Yeah, and Jordan had mentioned about using this on different devices. I mean, when I'm doing sales work, I do all of my entry work on an iPad that I got a cup holder stand and my iPad's in there, and I literally get done with a sales call and I just type it in my iPad like I'm in a police car or something. One of our users in the shop uses an iPad. 2 other users in our shop use multi-screen, through screen, desktops right at their workstations in our shop. And I've only seen one other shop like that, and I visit a lot of customers and vendors. I think the other thing too is that, and I don't know if Jordan mentioned it, but it was a 5-user minimum. And I don't know if he mentioned that or not. But I can turn it back over to Alex. He was going to walk through some of the other points of the system and how we use it.
Yeah, I just wanted to drive home the connectivity side. So I want to talk about the pain points that we mentioned at the beginning. So disconnected, siloed kind of systems, lack of real-time data because of the disconnected systems, really. And then ISO audits, pain with ISO audits. So I'll start out just kind of highlighting the connectivity. So I'm going to open the sales end of things. And if I look at a sales opportunity, I can, just like in the video, create a quote from the sales opportunity. So you're connecting sales to estimating. Once you're within estimating, you're connecting different employees within estimating together through workflows, and then also connecting estimating to a sales order by just committing the quote. And if you look at this number, you got quote 20. When that gets converted into an order, you've got order 20.1. So, and that trend kind of continues. So if I open up a work order, now I've got work order 20.1, line 1. And then this also connects to purchase, or to inventory and purchasing, so that when your receiving person is doing a receipt, that they know what they're looking at and what order it goes to as well. So you're connecting every department seamlessly. You can click through a sales opportunity all the way through to an invoice, which I could show too. And you're in one system, and you're able to do it very quickly without having to open up a bunch of different tabs and different systems, or go for a walk into the other department, or whatever it might be. So yeah, it's a different way to do things that once you make the leap to do the implementation, the difference is huge. I mean, yeah, it's hard to understate the difference between a truly connected, integrated, modern system and something which isn't. So yeah, just wanted to highlight how everything's connected. So also, once you invoice this order, you would get invoice order 20.1-1. So you went from quote 20 to order 20.1 to invoice 20.1-1. So you're always even retaining the number between departments. So if someone's talking about order 20, the person estimating has a reference. The person in invoicing has a reference. Yeah, everyone's got a reference to the same number 20. So
yeah, the continuity makes it really intuitive.
Right. Yeah. So, and then as far as real-time data, as all these actions happen in the system that we're looking at, that I just demonstrated, receipts, committing orders, making a purchase order, it all happens in real time. There's no lag waiting for something to post at the end of the day, or waiting for the pile of quotes on the estimator's desk to go from his desk to the next person's desk. All those delays kind of add up after a while. And when you have them across your whole system, they make a difference. They end up being noticeable, even if they seem small at each isolated location. And all the data that you see on this dashboard happens in real time too. So as far as like management oversight, decision making, you're working off of what's happening right now at your business, not what happened yesterday. So yeah, no matter what it is, it's all very instant. So yeah, and then as far as ISO audits, to kind of wrap up the pain points, I handled the ISO audits before we were in Cetec, and I've also done quite a few after, and it's night and day. I mean, the whole process of auditing is different, because the way I look at ISO audits is it's very comparable to onboarding an employee, like onboarding a quality employee. You're taking someone from outside your organization, you're trying to get them to a point where they're familiar with your organization enough that they can know what you do and compare it to what you say you do, and compare that to the international standard. And doing that when everything exists in one system is easier for the auditor, because as the day goes on, or multiple days of the audit go on, they become more familiar with the system because they're only in the one system. So for example, if they're talking to the production planning person, like in my video, it's my role at Gemini, they'll look at my queue, they'll interview me and say, how do you know what order to work on? And I would open up a production order list. I would sort it by my queue. I could even sort it by my name if we had multiple people in that role. And then I would hit submit, and I would show the auditor that this is how I know what to work on. These are the list. This is the list of orders that I need to work on. And then when he gets done with me, he wants to move on to the next part of the process, say it's the assembly station. And he does the same thing. He's going to go to the assembler and say, oh, how do you know what to work on? And they'll say, well, I open a production order list. I filter it appropriately to the work that's assigned to me at this work location, and they hit submit. And after that happens to the auditor a handful of times, they start to get it. They start to understand what they're looking at, and they know what to expect as they keep moving through your system. And what happens is the opposite of what happens when you have a disjointed system. What happens when you have a disjointed system with different silos of information everywhere, the deeper the auditor goes into the audit, it's like a can of worms. It's like, well, now I'm in this department, and now I have to learn the spreadsheets and the programs and the processes and the piece of paper that these people move. And now I go to this department, and I have to learn all their processes and all their pieces of paper and all their spreadsheets. And the scope just keeps broadening and broadening and broadening. And as someone who is leading an audit, that really adds stress and fatigue to the audit process, because you just don't know what the auditor is going to end up looking at, because there's just so much. You couldn't possibly review it before an audit and feel confident that you're not going to have any findings. But we've had many zero findings audits since being in Cetec, and we don't lose sleep over those anymore. So
it's having disconnected information is more likely to have a non-conformance without question, and having continuity to that. Your 2.5 day audit with 2 weeks of preparing for it comes to hours preparing for it, and it's a 1.25 day audit. And that's been our experience before and after.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd like to say there were pros and cons, but it was only pros.
Yeah,
there wasn't a con.
Yeah. So that's basically the 3 pain points that I really wanted to hit on. And I think now we could probably skip over to a Q&A. We've got some questions we can answer. For integration capabilities, what kind of third-party integration capabilities are there? Jordan, would you mind handling that one?
Sure. One of the nice things about being a modernized, web native forward ERP system is that the API is very robust. So in the application, it's all actually documented in app, where you can go to the admin module and say, okay, show me the layers of connectivity here and how I could either get data out of the system or into the system. And of course, it takes a little bit of a technically minded person to be able to go leverage those API docs. But it's very open. You know, the adage that we always throw around was, you know, plays well with others, right? Where, you know, you have an integration problem. Well, the core thing is, are the two systems you're trying to integrate to, are they friendly? You know, is it easy to get data in and out of them? And so, at least insofar as it pertains to Cetec, we've made it as easy as possible. So the entire database, in a very secure fashion, of course, is very accessible with a modernized REST is the term, REST-based JSON API. So yeah, it's very strong there. So it opens up a lot of integration possibilities that historically have just been very expensive, very, very troublesome. In terms of pre-built integrations, we do have some upgrade offerings there. We have a shipping integration option that it's effectively like a hub, where we've integrated to a hub, which is called Ship Engine, and they integrate to all the various carriers and providers. So UPS, you know, FedEx, DHL, and the list goes on. So that's a really cool integration. You know, it basically means you're not entering shipping data into two different spots. You can enter it into the Cetec shipping screen, and it goes and finds the carrier account, you know, on UPS or whoever, and it brings back the labeling, and it brings back the freight, and it brings back the tracking number and auto populates all those things. So that's a very cool one. We have some integrations with CAD to BOM, so we could talk about, you know, what it means to have something on your SolidWorks application. You can say, okay, I'm done, send to Cetec, and then we go create, you know, all of the part numbers and bill of materials and documentation and so on. We have a partner called API Works up in Dallas that, again, it's this idea of having a middleware hub where we integrate with API Works. They are experts on our API documentation, and they can say, okay, well, now we have a Shopify tool, we have a BigCommerce tool, we have a WooCommerce tool, and these websites where, you know, end users are ordering product from a website, it sends the order from the e-commerce platform down to create a quote and order in Cetec. There are a number of others. We have a QuickBooks Online integration for companies that really desperately don't want to let go of QuickBooks Online, despite our best efforts to urge them to use the accounting that's already in the system. That's okay. We have a plugin for that. Yeah, there are a number of things. If you go to our website and go to the pricing page and find our upgrades, you'll see a list of the built-in plugins there. One of the really neat ones, I think, that is probably the most significant is what we call Cetec ERP BI, so business intelligence, which is effectively a white labeled version, something that we've kind of put our own spin on, but the core technology is Metabase, which is, if anybody is familiar with, yeah, you can see right at the top there. So that's the upgrade. It's included as part of our enterprise plan. So again, if you go to our pricing page and look at enterprise, it's included in that. It is the service and the upgrade offering is for us to maintain the API layer between Cetec and this external custom reporting analytics platform, a business intelligence platform. That's Metabase, right? So really the service that we're offering is we maintain that integration. The product itself is if anybody's familiar with like Tableau or Microsoft Power BI, it's like that. It's a custom reporting engine. It hooks into your ERP system, and it gives you basically endless custom reporting abilities, you know, almost like as if you were an SQL or database administrator and you're writing custom reports, but it gives you the like easy to use tools within the interface to do like complex joins and all kinds of stuff. So for any data heavy people, you know, data nerds and that type of thing, that's what this is for. It is included as part of our enterprise version. Most smaller to mid-sized manufacturing companies who are, you know, it's like, man, we don't have an SQL person. We don't need that much power in reporting. Most of those types of manufacturing companies are very, very happy with the reporting that already exists in Cetec that Alex was showing earlier. You can you can search, sort, and filter it. You can, use bonus wildcard characters to smart match against records. You can drag and drop columns to the right and the left to, customize the report. You can export every report to Excel. So already the base level reporting in Cetec core application is already very strong and robust and usually sufficient. But for the especially data heavy minded folks out there that really want the ability to go in and write custom queries and all this stuff, the BI tool is pretty nice. So
just to give you some idea of what Gemini Plastics is and what we're using and how we would fit into that, what plan of Cetec. We're $4 million in total sales annually. There's 14 employees. We have 2 of them that are semi-retired that aren't in the system. We have 12 employees in the system. We use Light, and Light works very well for us. I don't have any. I don't see that there's a need for us and where we are today anyway. So that means there's a runway in front of us. We could grow into these others when the opportunity presents itself.
Well, and Joe, if I could, I love that you brought that up. It highlights the fact that, you guys have introduced GP Tech USA as a service, reseller company that has implemented Cetec yourselves, and what it takes. And you have somebody on staff that knows what it takes. And so there are kind of what I would say like a special kind of select few that, like you said, Alex, with his technology background, that was able to basically just use our documentation. Our video documentation and how-to tutorial documentation on our website is extremely robust. It's very open on how do you get things done. And so somebody like Alex was able to, to take that and say, well, I can learn this, and I can become the expert, and I can implement my own company on it. And I'll be my own, our own internal expert at Gemini Plastics. And that's exactly what Alex did, and got so good at it that, here you're able to go and implement somebody else, that wants to do the same thing. So absolutely. It's like, we would say, if you look at our pricing page on our website and you look at the Light plan and you say, well, you know what, I could do the Light plan and then engage with a reseller or service provider like GP Tech to kind of support me through this process. We're all too happy for that. And I think it's a great model for, especially like you said, a smaller manufacturing company. So that's a vision of ours for sure, very intentional. So I'm glad you pointed that out.
Cool. One question I think I want to make sure we answer that I don't think we've really gone over in detail is what is GP Tech? Because in a lot of the emails and stuff leading up to this, we were talking about Gemini, and GP Tech is an offshoot of Gemini. Sure. But just real quick to kind of explain what we are. So we are a value added reseller of Cetec. So we do sales work. We're trying to sell Cetec, but we're also a support partner. We have our own support plans, and we also are an implementation partner. So we can help people get implemented into the system. So, and this is just a quick look at our website. If anyone's curious, gptechusa.com, and we have some information there as far as what we do. So, yeah. And then another question that we get sometimes that I think would be good to cover, even though it's kind of sort of a big question, is what's the typical implementation timeline? And maybe I'll kind of say, what I think it is, but Jordan, definitely feel free to jump in. But I think it's one of those questions that's very difficult to answer until you know enough about that particular company's situation and what they're looking for, and it varies quite a bit. But that during the sales process and kind of the discovery process, that it can be figured out relatively accurately and shared. But I think a lot of the time it ends up being, it could be anything from a few months to a year. But it also does kind of depend on the company and how aggressively they're willing to go after it too, and how quickly they would like that project to get wrapped up. But yeah, Jordan, I'd be curious how you would answer that question. What's the typical implementation timeline of Cetec?
I agree with you that it does just vary depending on the nature of the manufacturing company and their project goals and so on. So I have seen people stand up the system. Think about like a startup. Okay, we got a facility up and running, and we've got product coming in, and we're rolling out a manufacturing startup company, right? I've seen people stand up the system and start processing orders in a week, like literally you're up and running immediately. So it can be that fast. Obviously, that's usually not the case. Most often it's, okay, we've been running the manufacturing company, we're growing, we're on QuickBooks or, a small accounting system and spreadsheets and paper and so on. And we've got to shore things up and get a new system. Or, you're on a manufacturing system from the 1980s or 90s or even early 2000s. And, it's time to modernize, right? And it's time to save some money, and it's time to get on a more powerful and easier to use system. Maybe it's going end of life and you don't have a choice, or it's not supported anymore. So sometimes those projects can be, at that point, it's a data conversion project ultimately, not to mention training. And so it really can span from immediate 2 weeks to a year or 18 months, right? And often a company has already started putting the pieces into place before they even engage, right? So the timeline even is like, okay, well, are your people ready? Like, is your company prepared for this, and so on? So I would say that's the outer range, like 18 months to 1 week. But if we're being honest, our target company and the people that make the most sense for Cetec are manufacturing companies between 10 employees and 500 employees. It's that range. And so even narrowing down that range, it's like most of our customers are between 15 employees and 150 employees, right? It's that small to mid-sized manufacturing company. Therefore, you're usually looking at between 2 and 10 months is about the average project span for us. So, and it does range. We get quite a bit all along that line. So
my question was going to revolve around integration, honestly, and also kind of target size. Is there a limit on or cap on when a manufacturer is getting too big for Cetec? I guess, what's your upper end from a revenue and employee standpoint, or is it really revolving around just complexity of their day-to-day operations?
There is no upper limit. There's no reason. It is from a technology standpoint in terms of like the bandwidth and data processing and so on, transactional volume and so on. There's no technical limit there. We have some multinational, multi-currency, like very global publicly traded companies running Cetec. Like it is that level of capability and scalability. So there's really no upper limit. I think realistically, when you talk about your Fortune 500, Fortune 100, it's just not something it's not business that we actively chase. You look at, the amount of entrenched software and, your SAP and Oracle and everything, not to mention just you got a whole other set of HR and like identity security. And there's a whole slate of things that happen at that scale that we're not really interested in doing that. But from a technical standpoint, in terms of what it takes to run sales, purchasing, scheduling, manufacturing, engineering, product, PLM style, BOM management, quality, accounting, like the core facets of any manufacturing company, there's really no upper limit. So hopefully that's a relatively qualified answer. Yeah. Yeah. Ironically, just to say one more thing about that, in terms of service, like GP Tech talked about your service offerings, I would say this is kind of a rolling, joke. You would think, or at least around our office it is, you would think that, this is a slightly larger manufacturing operation. They've got 200 people, that's going to be a much more difficult project. That's not true. What's actually more difficult is the 5 or 10 person shop that has no operational processes in place that, they run by their definition of efficiency, which is, get it done. And you put a system in the way to try to tell them that it's going to make them more efficient. That's the type of sort of process change and culture change that is much harder. Whereas a 200 person company that already has an ERP, if it's just a legacy or older ERP, well, they're already used to process being in place. And so it's very easy to bridge the gap. And in fact, you know, it's like, hey, here's a more modern and user-friendly way to do the same thing you were doing before. That's an easy win. What's very difficult is a small manufacturing company that needs this, but you know, it's painful. It's like putting in processing. That's a painful growth process. And that's where I think, you know, having a partner like GP Tech to say, hey, look, you know, it's okay. Like, we know it's hard, but we've done it and it's worth it. And here, we're going to help you, you know, do this. That's just invaluable, and I think necessary.
Well, thank you, Alex, Joe, and Jordan, for taking the time to talk about Cetec and what GP Tech has to offer. Very interesting information. It was nice to be able to see it on screen. If any of the listeners would like more information, please reach out to Alex or Jordan and begin that conversation. They'd be more than happy to talk through additional functionality of the software and figure out whether your business would be a good fit for this solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Michael.